Welcome back. Yes, you've seen Senator Ayarishe joins us now. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for coming on this morning. But yes, you were former chairman when you were in the Senate of Senate Committee on Privatization. I would just want to get your thoughts about this. While you chaired that committee, did you get the impression that the private sector was in the right path, especially now that there seems to be a lot of talk about getting the private sector to function and in what capacity, and do they even have that capacity to function? What was the impression and your experience chairing that committee relating with the private sector?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chimbali, and thank you for having me. In terms of the functionality of the private sector, I think we can see many of the dividends, all around us. The decision to privatize many of the public sector was a good one, and we can see the result from the telecommunications sector, from banking, from almost every phase of our daily life in Nigeria, and I think we should continue. Incidentally, it's not all been a success story, but there are areas where you might need some more adjustments, particularly when you look at the power sector, which obviously is one of the reasons I'm here today, to have a discussion on this bill. We are still suffering. We are very far from where we should be as a nation in terms of either power generation or distribution, or actually down to where you talk about the transmission as well. So every day when we come up with challenges, we do have excuses here and there. It's either we're not generating enough, or we're not able to transport or transmit the power from the generation point to the end users' homes or businesses, as the case might be. So I believe a lot of work is still required to be done in terms of the private initiative as it relates to power generation. But I think it's a good development for the country. We should continue to privatize many of the services, and so that we can get more efficiency in the system.
Well, you mentioned a number of things that may have been challenges, but as chairman of that committee at the time, what, in your own opinion, was the bane of privatization, especially of the sector that we are talking about?
Well, during my time, we still had NEPA, and it was just being onboarded to PCN and all that. So in terms of active participation in the privatization sector, I came in, I inherited everything that was privatized, and all we were doing was to ensure that maybe there were no reversals, during the time I was there. So it was just a question of ensuring that that policy stood. So after I left, privatization of the power sector came in. Before I got there, most of these items have been privatized, the hotels, the industries, manufacturing sector, and all that the government actually had. So in terms of looking at the process, I didn't participate in much of that. But I 100% supported the idea and the initiative, and we're actually looking at how those sectors performed. Like I said, some of them didn't do so well, some did exceptionally well. I mean, of course, that privatization was actually combined with liberalization of some of the policies, particularly the telecom sector, where private people, as against one carrier, which was Nitel, was the predominant player in the industry. And of course, now we're still talking about privatizing the oil sector. We're still looking at how people can begin to have their own modular refineries, and I believe that is already been implemented in the country. Now, the issue of the power sector, there has been a lot of discussions on giving people licenses to do modular power. I mean, individuals.
Before you go on to that, Senator, let's bring this subject matter to the table. What the CES on the bar there, lower third. Yesterday, on the floor of the Senate, amongst the bills that was read for the first time was this bill for an act to prohibit or ban the importation of generating sets in the country so as to curb the menace of air pollution and encourage or enhance or improve the power sector. Now, we know that senators, the lawmakers usually tell us they represent their people. So many were shocked, stunned to have even, think that the senator will, this bill would even make the rounds or come up on the floor of the Senate. So the big question is, I mean, shocking as the bill may seem, first, give us your impression of this. Do you think that when they come up with these bills, is it what their people want? Is it in touch with the country? Many even ask, look, clearly they think that this is out of place when we're struggling to provide stable electricity supply in the country.
Certainly, I would imagine that the consultation of the senator was maybe limited in terms of the implication for the larger population. There is no way you can ban the importation of generators when you have not provided an alternative for the people. There is no power. Even Abuja, that is doing fairly decently, I know how much money I spend on diesel to ensure that I don't sleep in the dark and I don't have mosquitoes which will cause malaria and all that. So, and that is the story for almost every average Nigerian. If you can't buy a diesel-operated generator, you buy a small one. There is the Let My People Go, which is like the 10 kVA, 5 kVA generators. That is extremely useful for people. Even those small business entrepreneurs, they require it, they need it. Even if you don't need generators to sleep, you need generators to pump water if you have a borehole, because there is no water, no government-provided water in most homes. So it's not, this discussion is totally uncalled for at this time. But having said that, there is a process. A number of the senators will still discuss this. When it comes to the second reading, everything will be considered line by line, and there is still the opportunity of public hearing. So it's not, having suggested that, people are still at liberty, particularly the National Assembly members, the senators, they will listen to their constituency and say, okay, this is not a very popular bill because, one, you have not made provision for the basic. As a matter of fact, any way you look at it, it's not a bill that can enhance the interest of Nigerians. You have now said people should go and start taking licenses. If you have a hospital, you go and take a license. A number of things were mentioned in there, whereby you will now go to the minister and go and request for a license to import or operate a generator. Where do you have the manpower to start monitoring everybody that puts on a generator in his home? And why do you need to punish people, Nigerians, for a problem that is not their fault? If we have electricity running in every home 24/7, like we have in almost all advanced countries, and I understand even Ghana next door here, they celebrated maybe years of non-breaking supply of electricity. So for us, I think the senator might mean well in terms of maybe protecting us from environmental pollution, but I think the pollution that we have in Nigeria, which even when we can still start talking of industrial beds. Maybe we have some areas in Lagos and maybe some areas in Abuja, because the individual generator that we have, that we power, and that people use in their homes, in their businesses, in their offices, I mean, when you have a small office and there is no electricity, you can't even type. Now you are saying you can't even prepare a document. And you are now saying that you want to ban the usage of it. I think the senator did not consult adequately for maybe with his colleagues and probably his constituency before coming up with this policy. Because I'm sure, I don't know of any serious industrial belt in Niger State that will be churning out so much pollution, air pollution, that will be disturbing the people, when we are still talking of so many things that can be done for the people. Housing, I can't even begin to measure it. So I think the senators will look at it, they will discuss it, they will debate it, and I believe it might not go beyond the second reading.
You know, before we take a look at the flip side to this, because some people think maybe this is even good. Taking this away will probably make us focus on that problem since there is no plan B. But some are thinking also the fact that this went through first reading, maybe this means it might eventually go the whole length and become a thing in the country.
Well, some people have given the argument about the fact that maybe the cabal importing generators into Nigeria are the ones ensuring that our electricity projects do not succeed. As much as that could be a factor, but I believe that once the government is determined, there is nobody that would stop them from implementing a good policy for the people. It's needed. And so if we are looking at, okay, if we stop importation of generators, maybe people will focus on providing power for the people. I don't think the government is responsible for importation of this category of generators we are talking about. It's mostly the private sector. They need to work. They need to be in their offices. They need to conduct their businesses. Even for canizers, the smallest ones, they use generator. So you look at it.
We'll come back to this. We'll come back to this conversation in a moment. So we'll let the report play out, and we'll take it from there afterwards. Stay with us.
Page 1460.
A bill which will surely raise eyebrows has been introduced in the Senate. It's a legislation which seeks to ban the importation and use of generating sets in the country to curb the menace of environmental pollution. Senator Muhammad Bima from Niger State is the sponsor of the bill, and it is read for the first time during Wednesday's plenary session.
Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The proposed legislation states that any person who imports generating sets or knowingly sells generating sets shall be guilty of an offence and be liable on conviction to be sentenced to imprisonment for a term not less than 10 years. However, this does not apply to the importation or sale of any generating set to be used for essential services, which includes hospitals and nursing homes, airports, railway stations, elevators and research institutions, or such facilities that require 24 hours electric power supply. It further states that approval for exclusion shall be obtained from the minister in charge of power, who shall brief the Federal Executive Council quarterly on approvals granted. The bill is already eliciting discussions and strong opinions on social media, hours after it is introduced on the floor of the Senate. For a country where its citizens rely on generators for electricity because of inadequate power supply, it's a bill which will be closely monitored by Nigerians. Meanwhile, a couple of constitution amendment bills are passing second reading in the Senate. They are a bill to amend the Constitution to make provision for the financial autonomy of local government councils, a bill to provide immunity for members of a legislature in respect of words spoken or written at plenary sessions or committee proceedings, as well as a bill to preclude the Federal High Court from entertaining pre-election disputes emanating from Congress, conferences, conventions or other meetings convened by political parties for the purpose of electing members of its executive committees of other governing bodies. Senate President Ahmed Lawan refers the Constitution Amendment bills to the Committee on Constitution Review.
And the bill is referred to the Committee on Constitution Review.
Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. It's our concluding moments with Senator Ayo Arishe. Well, Senator, I mean, given the challenge we have with power supply in the country, there are those who even think on the lighter note that even the place where the senator or his secretary might have typed this bill, they might have been using a generator in the background to type this bill. And so, but then this was the same way Nigerians were greeted with the social media bill, where they thought, nah, it won't go beyond first reading or second reading, and then, well, now we're talking about public hearing, and who knows, it's going to get back to the House. So are there guarantees the way these kind of things work? I thought they just say, look, you never can tell what may scale through second reading and what may not, even though there's a huge public outcry.
Well, like I said earlier, there is a process. The onus is on the public now, particularly the opinion leaders, to attend the public hearing, submit their position, and ensure that the leadership or the committee members listen, at least hears their opinion and voices. Now, the committee members would, after the hearing, will come up with a report and present it to the Senate as part of the observations discussed at the public hearing. And at the third reading, there is always a possibility that considering the details item by item, that the bill may not scale through, may not pass the plenary or the Senate. The procedure is very simple. Somebody introduces a bill, just like this generator bill. It's slated for second reading. After the second reading, it goes to the committee. And the committee will probably, in this case, be the Power Committee. And the Power Committee would ordinarily, or should, as part of the process, call for a public hearing. And at the public hearing, a lot of presentations will be made, and the positions will be presented to the committee members. This is where most people don't show up. And this is the area, this is the point where you feel very strongly about a particular bill. You make your facts known, and it's expected that the committee members will debate and discuss it, and hopefully we'll see the argument that, okay, based on presentation of the public and the reactions, this bill may not be a good bill at this time. That may be in the future when we have electricity and you see people making noise in your neighborhood. You can come in and make such a bill. But right now, there's no power anywhere. We've been having some improvements, but it's a very far cry from what is needed in the country. For the comfort of the people, of course, educational institutions have been exempted. A number of institutions have been named as being exempted.
Let me just butt in with this comment from one of our viewers on YouTube who was just saying, on a lighter note, and maybe this is a plan B for the social media bill. So if there's no lights to charge your mobile phone or computers, then no need to go on social media. But on a serious note now, we have a challenge, which is electricity. I mean, it's a major challenge. I can't even begin to tell you what I've gone through and what other Nigerians have gone through when it comes to electricity in the country. So people are saying, shouldn't there also be a bill that perhaps bans inadequate electricity supply in the country? Just maybe.
Well, I guess the National Assembly can seriously propose a bill for any sabotage in terms of provision of electricity for our people. Because we've seen, if a contractor is given a job, an assignment, there must be timelines. If they don't do it, it can become a major crime. And of course, we can set up timelines by which X, Y, and Z should work. If you say we should be generating 40, 50, and we are still at about, maybe we're ranging, I think it's somewhere between 3,000 and some ridiculous number. We came out of that is even the size of some states in Nigeria. They have almost 40 is it maybe kilowatts or whatever of electricity that that provides 24/7 supply of power to the people of that country. We are very far. This government is making efforts.
Let me bring this matter up and get your response to it. Yes, the social media bill, yes, they had the public hearing. Lots of representations were met, and they were very vocal that they didn't want it. But it's going to go back to, as you said, is it the committees, then the plenary, and then they take a decision on that. But even government agencies, the NCC, they were all reported to have said, no, this is not a good idea. But there are those who believe that it does appear as though those who moved the bill or came up with it, alongside several others, were hell-bent on ensuring that this becomes law. But now that it's been greeted with this kind of response, where lots of people saying no, the Senate will likely, or the Senate will, or should, I should say, listen to those voices, or is it just going to be down to what the Senate decides?
Well, it depends on the sponsors of the bill. Most times, if it's an executive bill, the chances are that it may pass. It may pass, and but that is not the end of it, because there is this opportunity for you or for anybody that feels aggrieved to go to the court. And even though it's been passed into law, we've had examples when we said the judges could no longer unilaterally give a seat as a result of their judgment. We said they should be sent back for election. But the court overruled that, the National Assembly should not be able to actually hold their hands from doing their work. Now, if you have this type of social media bill, people go to court, that this actually offends their fundamental right, to express or for expression and all that. And there are very brilliant lawyers in Nigeria. I believe this law will now could be hostile, that is probably the only hope that is left for anybody after the bill has been signed into law. So I think we have to continue to appeal to our senators to look at the whole merit of this social media bill, the reaction that is generated, and what is happening in other climes. But I have suggested that, look, it is the person that has, like Facebook, is being held responsible for many publications online. And the Congress of the US, they've invited Zuckerberg several times to come and tell the American public what effort is he making. For example, from allowing Russia to interfere in the election and so many other stuff. So for us, we have to hold the people like the owner of maybe Google, the owner of Facebook, and all those people that are responsible for carrying these messages from point A to point B, and say, okay, when you suspect that this is a fake news, and there are so many, they've introduced so many software and technology that is actually detecting some of this fake news real time through artificial intelligence and all that. So for us as a country, we cannot, because somebody has been offended, and by a particular instance, the courts are there to sue. I'm in courts against federal government, for example, because I felt they violated my rights. So that is possible. You can do that. But I think, generally speaking, we cannot do this because social media, the internet, has become a media for which you disseminate information worldwide. And so we cannot hinder access, to that. And the freedom of expression is another issue that has to be looked at very, very strongly.
All right, we'll anchor at that point, Senator Ayarishe, former chairman, Senate Committee on Privatization. Thank you for your thoughts this morning. We'll turn our attention now to something that the WHO has spoken of. Yes, you know, the coronavirus has been officially declared a pandemic. What next? In a moment. Stay with us.